public forum as well. So ngā mihi. So Danette, you can turn your camera on if you want. Great. There you go. Kia ora. How are you? Basically, you got 10 minutes, Danette, to do your public forum session. We have a bell if you get to about 9 minutes, just to let you know that 10 minutes is almost up. And then we councillors can ask questions of clarification. So kia ora, Danette and Rebecca and the team in the room. I'll hand over to you. There you go.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou. So thank you, Councillors Southwood and Robinson, for the invitation to speak today about Te Waihora. So I acknowledge all those joining us on the live stream today and those in the council chambers. Presenting with me is Rebecca Hartley from the Animal Justice Party, Policy and Executive Committee member, and as introduced, I'm Danette Wedita. ECAN is a key member of the Te Waihora co-governance group, whose documents state that Te Waihora is the symbol of life and vitality, yet actions and inactions tell a different story. As ECAN appears to be the only active party in the co-governance group, which we understand has not met for some time, you bear extra responsibility for upholding your obligations regarding biodiversity protection in Te Waihora. Our concerns are about recreational bird shooting, in particular, the impacts on biodiversity and its direct contradiction with your stated environmental obligations. Your own strategic documents outline specific commitments to 1, protect Indigenous biodiversity, 2, preserve critical habitat, 3, maintain ecosystem integrity, and 4, uphold conservation values. The practice of recreational bird shooting, killing for fun, fundamentally contradicts these commitments, and I will outline why. But first, while there are some points I could discuss, such as research that documents the societal harm of normalising killing, including studies linking animal cruelty to increased violence, and evidence that exposing children to recreational shooting desensitises them to suffering, today's focus remains singular: your governance responsibility regarding biodiversity protection at Te Waihora. This is not a discussion around the ethics of hunting or mahinga kai. Your own governance group's strategic summary celebrates Te Waihora as New Zealand's most diverse bird habitat. You promote it as a sanctuary, an internationally significant wetland, a place of natural wonder. Te Waihora is unique. It's home to 158 plus bird species, 133 of which are endemic or native. Yet, in the same sanctuary, you permit recreational killing. You cannot create a sanctuary for some birds while allowing others to be shot for sport in the same space. When shots are fired at Te Waihora, every bird experiences the impact, whether it's the target or not. The impact of gunfire, hunting parties' disturbance, and habitat disruption cause panic and harm, affecting all 158 species and the Te Waihora ecosystem, not just the so-called game birds. What is also interesting is that birds like the crested grebe are listed as birdlife on your co-governance website. Now, Lake Pearson, obviously in Canterbury, has taken huge steps to protect the crested grebe, and back in 2002, it became a wildlife refuge. ECAN even imposed a law to restrict speed, effectively offering protection from powerboats and jet skis. So a place cannot be both a protected wildlife sanctuary and a recreational killing zone, a bird watching destination and a shooting range, a symbol of life and a site of recreational death, a family recreation area and a place with guns. I'll hand it over to Bex.
So Te Waihora received a National Water Conservation Order, the highest form of water protection, equivalent to national park status for water bodies, specifically due to its wildlife values and unique ecosystem. As Danette has said, you cannot create a sanctuary for some birds while allowing others to be shot in the same place. The ecosystem doesn't recognise these artificial distinctions. New Zealand has also signed binding international conservation agreements that are breached by allowing recreational shooting of birds in Te Waihora. These include the Convention on Migratory Species, protecting birds that travel international pathways, This matters because they are legal commitments, not just aspirational documents, and they recognise Te Waihora's global ecological importance. And this matters because protected species don't understand safe zones. The entire habitat becomes a zone of fear. Feeding patterns are disrupted, breeding success is compromised, and population stability is threatened. The fundamental truth is this: you cannot simultaneously protect and destroy. Either Te Waihora is a protected sanctuary or it's a recreational shooting range. It cannot be both. The governance group must honour the international commitment and conservation order and stop recreational killing. These positions are irreconcilable. And that's back to you, Danette.
Thanks, Bex. There are also some other important legal issues to consider. The Animal Welfare Act of 1999. This requires prevention of unnecessary suffering, mandates a humane death, which requires retrieval of shot animals. Yet, water contamination can prevent retrieval. ECAN warns against water contact, which also means that injured birds can be left to suffer. This is illegal, and it currently can't be monitored or managed. Our call to action is very clear. ECAN must ban recreational shooting at Te Waihora.
So we recommend that you guys reconvene the co-governance group to address the policy contradictions, the environmental damage, and the community concerns. Additionally, ECAN must acknowledge the current failures, implement protective measures, stop deflecting responsibility to fish and game, and exercise its authority to protect ecological values. In closing, the co-governance group's own documents provide all the evidence needed to end duck shooting at Te Waihora. The question isn't whether it should end, but how much more damage will occur before you act. Te Waihora deserves more than beautiful words and strategic summaries. It deserves leaders who match actions to words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora kōrua, thanks for that. Do I have any questions from councillors? Ian, Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. Donetta, you made a point of referring to recreational shooting as opposed to hunting for Mahinga Kai. Are you distinguishing between the two?
Yes.
Yep, you are. Thank you, Danette. Yep.
So what is the difference?
So essentially shooting birds for fun is recreational. So there's mai-mais everywhere all along. Actually, I was down there last season and have to say there was so much litter and it's crazy. I recommend anybody going down during the duck shooting season. But yeah, shooting ducks for fun just seems really absurd when you think about the conservation order and the international commitments that we have. Why would we shoot ducks for fun there?
No, you haven't quite answered my question. My question is, what's the difference between hunting, shooting ducks for recovering the duck as food and shooting for fun? How do you distinguish between the two activities when they both look and feel pretty much the same?
They can look and feel the same. I guess one is that the duck has been eaten. I had a great conversation with Chair Pauline around that. There's some really different views, which is why I'm purposefully not entering into that conversation. And as I stated in my speech, this is not a discussion around mahinga kai. There is obviously warnings in the lake. Some people still believe that you can eat the birds in the lake despite those warnings. Some people completely disagree with that. I'm sure there's scientists that can answer that question a lot better than what I can. I am not entering this conversation around mahinga kai. However, I did, as a side note, find a great article published by ŌTAUTAHI that actually outlined that shooting ducks was not for fun, was not mahinga kai. So yeah, it is hard to distinguish. However, we are saying that this is around recreational shooting, and I think that's a conversation that ECAN can then look at. Well, given that, how do you monitor and manage that, and where is the difference between potentially, for example, mahinga kai and hunting versus shooting ducks for fun?
Thank you. Councillor Cranwell, and then I've got Councillor Korako, Councillor Burns, and Councillor Robinson.
Kia ora kōrua, nei te mea atu kia koroa mo tō haramai tēnei ata ki te kōrero kia mātou. Thank you both for coming. Just a question, you talked about 158 bird species, and then when I suppose when the duck shooting's on and the noise, have you got any done any research or etc. how this activity disperses the bird species and actually where they go at all?
No, that's a great question and probably something that needs to be investigated. As someone who's sat down there during duck shooting season, you can definitely see just visually the disruption of the birds. It's pretty horrific to watch and very unsettling because, birds obviously don't fly around and think, oh, well, I'm not on the list, I'm totally okay. We know that's not, that's beyond the bird's capability of thinking that way. But there definitely should be some investigation around that disruption.
Kia ora,
We,
sorry.
part of the
You go, Rebecca.
sorry to interrupt. Yeah, so as part of the policy team, we are actually working to create the policy that is specifically for the recreational hunting, so competitions, that sort of vein, rather than Forkai. So there is some research that does talk about the ecological disruptions and the dispersion of other species that are not targets. If you would like, we can get that to you if there is more information you guys are needing or would like.
Oh,
But there is information, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great, Rebecca. Just on myself, that we do gather swan eggs on the lake. In and around Waihora, and actually culling, which is you're talking about duck hunting more, but culling of species as well also has an effect in dispersal. And just over the last 20 years, we've noticed that that swans have stopped nesting in and around Waihora because of either culling and shooting as well. So just and also the pū teke teke, the crested grebe. Unfortunately, has left Waihora and moved to Wairewa because Wairewa is a better spot, better lake than Waihora anyway. But kia ora, thanks for that.
Councillor Korako.
E mihi atu kia kōrua. Mauria mai e whakaako ki te kaupapa. Can I, first of all, just thank you and acknowledge your presentation, because when I hear this happening again, and I must say that I'm the chair of the Ihutai Ahu Whenua Trust, and basically when you look at that, the whole of the Ihutai, the birds that visit there, the birds that actually live there, all of that, and we're having this thing around dogs at the moment, but your one is a little different, but it's also nonetheless, it's actually about our Papatuanuku, the korowai, the fauna, the flora, and all of that. I know that these questions you may have had before, but I've just got two of them. And one of them is that, obviously there is that question that will come up, and I'm just wondering how you address it, is around how do you control the population, the duck population, actually onto Waihora, through culling and things like that. So that's my first question.
Great question. And often what needs to happen and what happens very successfully in other countries is putting together that management strategy. I'm actually going to speak with a councillor at Christchurch City Council on Friday, as with the people in the room in your council chambers today, in regards to geese management strategy. So there is no one way to do it. You need to put together an effective strategy and look at what some of those initiatives are upstream for that successful management. Having a cull at the end isn't always the most successful way to do something. And I think what we're trying to say today is that when you're, shooting guns in a sanctuary that has a protection, conservation order and international obligations, is that the right thing to do? Surely there are other things to do. and that needs to be put together, that management strategy, rather than just someone shooting for fun and disrupting all 158 species. Though on the last council, and maybe there's 157. We did get that information from your website. So sad to hear about the crested grebe.
Yeah. Supplementary? Chair? Yeah. I just have another question. I thought it was interesting around, trying to associate this with mahinga kai. And in the fact, we don't actually take mahinga kai for fun. A lot of it is actually about our own sustenance. It's also about being able to protect the habitats and all of that, and have a controlled one. So my other thing is that there will be probably, you've had these questions, is that, and I totally get, having a plan, around culling. There was some others actually with avid shooters, that are duck shooters, swans and all of those. And they're saying, well, what about having silencers on guns, using other let's call them weapons, like bow and arrow or whatever, slingshot. So have you come across that?
No,
Personally,
I
no.
No.
Sorry.
Go, Bex.
Okay, I just, the biggest problem is we know that guns are, for instance, the most effective, and that is one thing that comes up a lot in hunting, and how is the most effective way. So I would say that letting people just go for it with a bow and arrow, that's not necessarily going to actually end the suffering of the animal proposed for food, whereas a gun would. And the big problem we're seeing is that a gun in a sanctuary is, any weapon in a sanctuary feels wrong.
I think as well, with the bow and arrow, you then risk the point that I made around the Animal Welfare Act, and it is illegal to have an animal left suffering, and so you have to have the retrieval of that duck, which is also hard at the moment given the health of the lake. So
okay, hey,
there definitely needs to be those strategies, and looking at the eggs and those types of things are working very effectively in other countries.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the presentation. You're on a journey, and it's really, if you look at Te Waihora and about what's happening over there, particularly around, shooting and all of that, just think of us over at Whakaraupō, where we've got dynamiting of a quarry right next to a spawning bed, a kohanga, actually in Whakaraupō. And that's a marine sanctuary. Thank you.
Wow.
Councillor Burns.
Kia ora kōrua, and thank you very much for that. I know through my own experiences at places like Te Rawakaka, Jockey Baker Creek, to Kohanga wetlands, that you often have hunters leaving behind carcasses in piles. And I wondered, this is particularly topical now with another lot of avian botulism occurring. Did you come across that when you were out there last having a look?
Yeah, absolutely. And Animal Save did a fantastic job of documenting some of that. So that has been found. I've also read quite a lot of research recently around the high risk. It's coming out of America at the moment around the high risk of duck shooters handling the bird, and the risk that they hold to our agriculture community, because they can essentially transmit that bird flu. It goes to cows, it goes to humans. It is something that the policy team of the Animal Justice Party are very interested in at the moment and following. So a great risk that you have raised there, and very, very serious.
Kia ora, thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
No, thank you very much for speaking today. I must admit, just listening to you, it actually opens up another lot of questions on, some of the things that may have been happening or not. Just with regards to perhaps, undertaking a survey to look at some of the ramifications of, gunshots or noise in general, because you'd have to have some sort of control in place. What sort of avenues have you gone down to maybe look at the effects of those activities, and would you be prepared to do them or have something involved with them at all?
Absolutely, we'd
So-
love to be involved.
We are all volunteers, so a lot of the stuff that we have been able to do in this space is just research, reaching out to organisations, getting information from the experts in different areas. So it is hard for us to actually get boots on the ground to get that ecological surveying done, but we would really love to be involved in that and support that initiative as much as we can.
I'll just be very quick, because there's actually some work with the bittern population going on there as well, I believe. And so it might be, poignant to actually connect with some of these groups doing the work and just see if we can sort of match up some points. Thank you.
Thanks. Let's keep it to questions if we can for now, and we can have the debate when we do the resolution. But away you go, Vicky.
Yeah. So thank you for coming and speaking to us today. It makes logical sense to me, and I'll come to that in the debate. Just interested in what mechanisms do we have as Environment Canterbury to prevent? We're looking to put some sort of bylaw in place, or is there something within our current plans that we can change in order to make it not possible to go recreational shooting in this area? Have you looked at that?
Yes, thank you. And I think that is a great question. I think the two main points that we have called out today is around the conservation order and the international commitments. I think those are enough. All of the information that I shared today has come from your own strategic documents. So I think that you have it there within your own documentation to pull the pin on this, because essentially it is not meeting, you're not meeting those commitments in a very black and white way. That's what we are calling out today.
Thanks. Any other questions? I don't think there is. Yeah, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, I think, Danette, in terms of, who the other authorities are in terms of who authorises recreational shooting, which is Fish and Game, and then obviously the Wildlife Act with Department of Conservation. So they are Department of Conservation is partners to the co-governance arrangement at Te Waihora. So I think that's something that we've previously the staff have provided feedback on. And my question would be, are you intending to go to North Canterbury Fish and Game or the Department of Conservation to take these issues to them?
That's a great question, Chair Pauline. I think one of the things that I would, to answer the question in a roundabout way, but I ask you all to consider this. If recreational boating was eroding nesting banks and destroying wildlife habitat, just as an example, would you act? Or would you wait for another agency to intervene? Or would you recognise your duty to protect the ecosystem? Now apply that same thinking to recreational shooting. Why is it treated differently?
Good question, Danette. And in the response, if we do the resolution soon, that could be part of that. But I do understand we do have some statutory responsibility around navigational safety, so that's something we could do. But where we don't have that statutory authority, it is pretty tricky for us. So we can outline that in any response that comes back to you. So I'm keen to move to the resolution. So thank you again, Rebecca and Danette, for your presentation, and thanks for the questions from councillors. We've got a couple of resolutions here to look at. So to receive the public forum from Danette and Rebecca regarding 4.1 on the public forum, and to provide a reply back to Danette as soon as practical. If I got a mover for that, Councillor Southworth, and a seconder, Councillor Robinson. Does anyone wish to speak to this? Yep, Vicky.
Yeah. So just to say, the contradiction of shooting for sport and a bird sanctuary really resonates strongly with me. Like, that makes it, they are completely at opposite ends of the spectrum. I know, having been the representative on the Christchurch, the Avon Heathcote Estuary ŌTAUTAHI Trust, that there was a lot of concern and advocacy to Christchurch City Council to move the fireworks night because of the amount of disruption to the birds from fireworks. That's, from the noise of fireworks, which is a one-night event. That was the 5th of November Guy Fawkes Night, which is a weird thing to celebrate in New Zealand anyway. But that was very much seen to be impactful among a lot of bird experts and people who know a lot about birds on that particular trust. So, I can certainly see that there's a risk here that there's impacts on the bird populations from shooting in that lake. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Was it Greg?
Yeah, very briefly again, thank you very much. And I personally take on the fact that you are saying to re-establish the regular meeting of the advisory management group out there. I think that's something that we can hopefully definitely take away. Thank you.
Nope.
Look, I think I'm with Councillor Southworth actually around this is a contradiction. And we should support this actually because let's take away these contradictions. And so I think hopefully we're going to, I don't know what the next steps are, Chair, but I for myself actually completely support this work. And thank you to to Rebecca and Donette as well for coming here to highlight this issue. Kia ora.
Councillor McKenzie?
Well, I just want to make the point that neither of the two speakers, as far as I could understand, want to ban shooting. They just want to ban shooting for fun. And so clearly we have to establish what's the difference between hunting for food and hunting for fun. And I declare that I go hunting for food. I hate it. I hate it with a passion, in which case I'm allowed to do it. That seems an absurdity to me, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Cranwell.
Yeah, just like to acknowledge the two speakers today just coming in and bringing this to our attention. As a Mahika Kai gatherer and seeing what shooting does to the Kakianu population in and around to Waihora, and then seeing the population dwindle over time. I support what we can do for this, and then also just to correct Danette, I was just saying that the Pūteketeke crested grebe had just moved around the corner just because it was safer in a sense. There's probably hardly any shooting in and around Wairua, but also it just shows that they prefer a better lake. That was all. Kia ora.
I think they're still at Te Waihora too, actually. There's just a more visible population at Wairua because it's a smaller lake. But anyway, now you can see them better. Councillor DJ.
Kia ora. Just wanting to note that since the speakers brought it up about the avian bird flu and the link to the U.S. information, since Trump has taken office, President Trump has taken office, things like the CDC website and a lot of the scientific data has been stripped from public access. So we're kind of flying blind on a lot of the updates. I have been reading from scientific papers from other countries. Spain was the last one I think that I saw regarding research down in Antarctica, talking about a massive die-off this last summer season there. So there are some genuine concerns that we need to take very seriously.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, I think that's all the debate. Oh, yep, Vicky.
Sorry,
go back to you as the mover.
Yeah, I don't normally use this, but I forgot to say that even if it's not in our power to do a bylaw or something very explicit with this, we can at the very least advocate and connect with DOC and with Fish and Game as the council. So I think we can.
Yeah, and they're definitely DOC is part of the officials group for the Waihora stuff, so they have been involved. In terms of next steps, Nook, in terms of your point, it would be the letter that we write back to Danette would outline those things, so that would be some clarity and that would be published in our next meeting or whenever that happens, but probably by the next meeting in the Chair's report, so you'll get to see that, and if there's any issues that aren't clarified through that, then we could bring that up as another discussion. So that would be the next step after we put this to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against?